Welcome to Sunrise Life, the podcast where we have deep conversations with fellow freelance models. Today, I have Azura Grace on the line. Say hello.
Hello.
Thank you so much for taking the time to do the podcast with me. I'm excited.
Thank you so much for having me.
Heck yeah. I love your photos. I've been following you ever since I met you in person at that group event earlier. That was early 2023, right?
Yeah, that was just last year.
That was just a little bit less than a year ago. It wasn't even that long ago, I guess.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, that was fun though. It was fun to meet a lot of fellow traveling models, and then I feel like I made a lot of friends on that trip too.
Me too. I don't go to a lot of group events and stuff, so it was really nice to get to meet people in person and put faces, like actually meet people that I've seen online and stuff and admire their photos from afar. But
Cool. What other types of group events have you done, if any?
mostly small workshops. I've done a couple of workshops for David Macy that have been really cool, and just came back from one that was really fun and productive. So I always meet great models and photographers at those events.
Cool. That's awesome. About how many models do they have at the David Macy ones?
2 or 3 at a time, which is the perfect amount of people for me.
Yeah. 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 At the Muses event, oh my gosh, was there like 40 or 50 people there? Jeez.
It felt like it. Yeah, it felt like a lot of people. I was sharing a room with a lot of people too, but everyone
Oh,
was
really?
really sweet and cool, so that was good.
That's good. Yeah, I just had one roommate, and it was a small room, so.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly the amount, but I think we had 5 girls in the room because we were all trying to be as cost effective as possible.
Oh my gosh, with 2 beds?
No, it was there was a pull-out bed, a full bed, and then another full bed in the other room, I
Oh,
think.
okay. Yeah, your room was bigger than mine for sure. We just had one tiny bed, and there was not really much room other than that.
Yeah, no, it was like a double, so it wasn't too crazy.
Cool. So, for the listeners, and I guess for myself also, I would like to hear how you first got into modeling.
So I started, so way back when I used to do like Twitch streaming and cosplay stuff, and I started to take some photos with my boyfriend at the time, who was a photographer, and of my cosplays, and it kind of just went from there. I started taking my own self-portraits and stuff, and those kind of got some, notice online or whatever. And from there on, I kind of just started getting offers to do shoots. And I was in Portland, so there was a lot of like interesting, creative people to work with. So that was cool.
Oh, you were living in Portland before you moved to Texas?
Yeah, I was living in Portland when I started modeling years ago.
Oh, that's so cool. I saw photos that you did with Cuttlefish, and those are so fun.
Yeah, he's sweet, and I learned a lot, actually. I tell photographers all the time, if and if he's listening to this, I hope he hears it, because I tell them all the time how much I learned from working with him in terms of, like, he's really good at giving direction, and the pinup poses that he does mostly are, like, really core to a lot of modeling things, I think, so.
Yeah. Yeah, he's really nice, communicative. I only worked with him once, but I really enjoy following his Instagram because he shares a lot of goofy stuff on his story.
Yeah, it's fun to work with people who are just kind of like, yeah, I just do what I like.
Yeah, and they don't have to, make it seem like they're reinventing the wheel all the time or that everything is super serious and important.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no pretension can be nice.
Yeah. So you started modeling when you were Twitch streaming and doing cosplay, and your boyfriend took pictures of you and you took self-portraits,
Yeah.
and you also were living in Portland. What ended up causing you to move to Dallas?
Well, I've always been somebody who moves kind of a lot. Like, that's just how I grew up. So it's just kind of like natural to me to feel done with a place after a few years. And I
Wow.
was in Portland for longer than anywhere else. I think I was there for almost like 7 years. And it was just kind of time to leave and to do something new. And I had broken up with said boyfriend. I was
Oh.
now living with somebody else. And we decided we were going to go move to Hawaii. And we lived in Hawaii for a couple years and
Oh.
then moved to Texas, where my now husband's family lives.
Wow, that's amazing. You live which island of Hawaii? I'm curious.
Oahu.
Sweet. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it was
rad.
a pretty lucky, yeah. I'm extremely grateful to have gotten to live there at all.
Did you do many shoots when you were living in Hawaii?
Oh, yeah, tons, because so many photographers, are going through there on vacation or something else. And plus, there's a lot of local photographers too. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I've definitely shot with some people that lived on Oahu, and it's a very populated island, but it's also, I mean, I think everybody kinda knows everybody when you live out there for a while, right?
yeah, I think it's a pretty small, there's small communities there, but still, like, well, I did work with some people multiple times, and that was awesome. I also, like, most of my work, like, was from people traveling through. So you could
Cool.
kind of always rely on that too.
That's so cool. I haven't been to Hawaii in a few years. I would love to go back sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. If you can see it as many times as possible in your life.
Yeah. So when you first started and you were doing the cosplay, were you posting that on Instagram or where were you posting it? Like how did photographers find you?
Yeah, I was posting it on Instagram, and at the time I was working full time at like a retail job, and I was also doing like some freelance graphic design work. And I was super busy and really just filling up every moment of my time. And my like grand plan was that I was going to figure out how to finally make social media work for me. And so I like super sat down and studied what at the time worked for Instagram and stuff in terms of being seen. And it did work. And I was able to get my Instagram account up to like 40,000 within only like essentially a few months. Um,
Wow.
and that was pretty great. And I got seen pretty quickly by being consistent. Of course, like everything is different now, and I lost that account last year, but
Oh, bummer.
it just kind of is how it is, right?
Yeah. Was it from posting like implied news or censored photos or something?
You know what? I really try to be careful about it, but to be honest, I think it was because I clapped back at somebody in a comment somebody made at me, and I don't have a great. I rarely respond to anything that people say, but then when I do respond to something, I'm usually pretty like going for it. So I think I got in trouble because of
Oh.
that.
You think that Instagram got you in trouble or maybe that person started reporting a bunch of your posts and they tried to get you sabotaged?
Maybe I think because I got like flagged or whatever right after that. So either way, I kind of felt like, oh yeah, I stirred the pot and I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, I get the sense that whoever it was that, was antagonizing you probably just tried to, like, report a bunch of your posts because that's happened to me before too, where
Sucks.
somebody had a miscommunication and they got really pissed off about I mean, people get offended easily on the internet. It's hard, when you're not
Yeah,
looking at somebody's face to, like, understand where they're coming from, and people get pissed.
totally.
And yeah, that happened to me a couple years ago, but I was able to get my account back fortunately, but sometimes you can't, so
Yeah,
it
I mean, lots of people were really helpful in telling me different ways that I could get my account back, but I couldn't like settle on whether or not I felt like it was worth it or like legitimate or not. So I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna start over.
yeah, word. So do you find most of your work on Instagram, or do you use other platforms also?
I get most of my work on Model Mayhem. I know
Oh,
that's kind of old school, but it's
Yeah,
kind of what I prefer over Instagram because I just feel like Instagram's not very reliable.
right. You could get deleted again.
Right, exactly. And sometimes I don't even receive messages from people that it says I've received them from, so I'm just like, I'd rather do it old school.
Yeah, that's cool. I still get work off of Model Mayhem too, but I think I get a little bit more off of Instagram just because I'm more active on there.
Well, yeah, and I mean, you've got such like a presence online too, so
Yeah, it's always like a snowball of like just adding more things to the internet, I guess. I think
right.
that's what we all got to do is just constantly remind people that we exist.
Right, diversify your platforms, but then it's like, gosh, at a certain point you're like, I'm on how many platforms now?
Yeah, totally. So you were taking self-portraits. Are you also a photographer? Like, do you photograph other people and stuff too?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I was a photographer because I feel like I'm an aspiring photographer. um, I enjoy taking pictures of people, and some people have said that they liked the pictures I took of them. So that makes me feel happy.
Yeah. Heck yeah. I mean, that's a good place to be. And I kind of go back and forth myself with should I like advertise my photography and try to make money at it or just do it for fun?
Right. And I think like I started to want to advertise it, but then the more that I was doing it, the more it felt like a artistic and like personal creative endeavor. And that's more, I mean, like I said, personal. So it's not something that I necessarily feel the need to have to share all the time, and definitely not necessarily to monetize.
Right. In the same grain, though, modeling is kind of like that too. And a lot of people have said that, like, they wanted to go into retirement and just do modeling for fun because that brings the joy back into it. But have you felt that at all? Like, has becoming a full time model made it like a challenge for you?
I think definitely yes. I think that because the majority of my work is in the I don't want to say less creative realms, but let's just say like it's more boudoir and swimwear and fitness and that kind of stuff that doesn't always lend itself to more creativity. And depending on, the person, and that can be kind of, I guess it kind of just feels more like work, like you show up, you do the thing, and I feel like I brace myself for what kind of experience am I going to have this time. And whereas if I was just pursuing creative endeavors, it would be much more or much less anxiety inducing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I know what you mean. Like the glamour and like I you're right. It is less creative in a way because a lot of the lighting and the posing for like boudoir and fitness, it like there's parameters to it that photographers stick to, and there's
Right,
not a whole lot of like experimentation. It's like 3/4 knees up or like
right.
boobs up, and the same expressions generally and the same 12 poses. Yeah, so you're right. Like, I feel like doing something more creative with like weird light and weird poses is definitely something that I also enjoy doing more, but
Yeah.
somehow it's not as like popular on the internet.
Right. I mean, I think it's no secret why, the other, why glamour modeling is more popular on the internet. And I have fun glamour modeling too. Like that's definitely not to be said that I don't have fun with it or don't enjoy it. I do. It's just more of like, oh, when that's the majority of what you do, you start to crave more artistic releases.
Yes. I've been in that spot also, and I think the only time that it has become frustrating to me is when like there was a period of time for myself when had a lot of glamour photos up like everywhere because I moved to Southern California and that's all anybody wanted to do. And I was
Mhm.
trying to diversify by reaching out to artsy photographers. And some people would say, oh, well, I don't want to work with you because it looks like you're not diverse and you're just a glamour model. And I got really upset with that. And I was like, well, okay, well, I'm going to show you guys. And I like sought out like varieties of different types of modeling after that.
Yeah, that's smart. Yeah, I think I don't, no one's ever said anything directly to me like that. I think I mostly just internalize that people might think that. And so I
Yeah.
try to get ahead of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's tough when Instagram is the most popular platform and you can't
Share
post
your work.
anything where you're not wearing something. So,
Yeah.
it's all
Yeah.
swimwear and stuff.
Yeah, I feel like I have some really great art nude stuff that I just can't share, and I just haven't found a place that, has the kind of reach where I could share them
Yeah.
that Instagram has.
Have you tried implied.vip yet?
I have, yeah, I have tried them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's growing, it's steadily growing.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe one day it'll be as popular as Instagram, but I guess it's hard to, like,
It's hard
break.
these days with the regulations and stuff, that they have.
Yeah. So some of the stuff that you've posted on Instagram that I've been following the last few months, I guess, you recently started becoming an advocate for raising awareness about autism, and I would like to hear more about that.
Thanks for asking. So I basically had my official diagnosis about a year ago now, after knowing that I was autistic for a few years before that and really agonizing over what that like meant for me. um and I guess about a year after the diagnosis, a few months ago, I started to really reach out to other autistic, particularly women online, to ask their opinion about whether or not they felt it was appropriate for me as a like glamour model with a kind of, inherently sexualized presence online to start talking about something like autism advocacy. And the response was overwhelmingly positive. And I did find other openly autistic models online who felt like it would be a good thing to contribute to talking about that. And so it helped me get the confidence to start sharing some experiences.
Wow, that's really amazing. And I also think that's really a brave and bold kind of move because you're right. Like becoming an advocate for anything important, if you are like a model that has sexy or nude photos on the internet, I suppose that would also give me some form of imposter syndrome. Like, is it okay if am I going to be judged for this?
Definitely. I mean, I think it challenges what people think an autistic person looks like. So that's one side of it. And then the other side of it is that I know that even though I don't see the sexualization as a negative thing for myself, that I didn't want to put that on any other group or community without their consent.
Yeah, no, that's valid, and I didn't even think about that until you brought it up. But yeah, that is important. And I know there's a lot of models that do use their platform for raising awareness on various things, whether it's political or like a social justice. Uh,
Definitely.
and because we have a lot of people looking at our platforms because we have, these modeling photos and a lot of people like looking at that, I think it's cool to like have a message to go along with it. It gives your modeling more of a meaning, right?
Definitely. And, part of being autistic is that, like, you struggle, at least for me, I only speak for myself, but I struggled a lot with feeling inauthentic because you suppress so much of who you are and, like, your daily, like, thoughts and desires and the way that you understand things is just can be so different from the way that other people do that you kind of lose a bit of your self identity. And so, social media, a place where you're not really encouraged to be authentic, or at least not until very recently, I feel like you haven't really been encouraged to be authentic. And especially when your social media presence correlates to your ability to make money, there's a lot of pressure to just be likable and also, kind of like squeaky clean, and that like you don't show any of your weaknesses or you're not open about those kinds of things. And I just kind of lost the ability to continue doing that and enjoy my job. Like for me, it was just like, if I'm going to continue to do my job, I have to be more authentic. And being more authentic means I have to talk about this because this is like my entire life, you know?
Wow. Wow, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing about that. I do resonate. That resonates with me a lot, and I know that this is like a struggle for like every freelance model with their social
Uh-huh.
media. Like, how much of my like true personal life do I share with
Yeah.
my modeling fans? Like, did you ever have a moment where you were like, you know, unsure about sharing about your personal life?
Dude, every single time I share anything, I'm unsure about it. Like, I've written out so many well thought out, like, I've literally spent hours writing out things and then gotten to the point where I've posted it only to delete it 15 minutes later because I'm not sure about it.
Oh.
You
Have
know,
you
like, all of the time.
have you ever like, has there ever been a time where you shared something personal online and you had negative feedback from it?
Yes, definitely.
Ooh.
Two or three kinds of different kinds of negative feedback. One thing is that while it's awesome to connect with other people who've had similar experiences, I think maybe this might be because I'm a girl online, but men who have similar experiences to me kind of tend to just like dump all of their life story and stuff and problems onto me, but they're people who I don't know. And so kind of sharing those things out into the social media world has kind of invited some people to maybe overburden me a little bit with their personal stories.
Okay, yeah, I get that totally.
Yeah, so that's something. And then I guess the other thing is in person, when I've shared that I was autistic, I have been unfortunately called the R word. I have been told some other offensive things, like ask questions like, so I don't have emotions or I'm a robot, things like that.
Oh, wow. What?
Yeah. And then I did have one person who it's like, it's not even very important, because it's just one person, but who was like, oh, saying that I essentially shouldn't be talking about any of that stuff because it's not that bad and I shouldn't be like proud of overcoming anything or, whatever. And I was just like, I don't even know you, so I don't really care.
Yeah, it's good that you have that ability to just, like, not take those comments from strangers personally, because that can be really, like, emotionally damaging to a lot of people.
It can be, and I definitely like I wouldn't say I don't take them personally. I would say I take it very personally, and then within a few days to a couple of weeks, I'm better over it, and I'm like, okay, it's past now.
Wow. Yeah, that's hard. That sounds hard.
But it's just kind of like I really admire the other autistic people online, particularly women who have been vocal about their experiences while also showing like how beautiful and confident and sexy they can feel and look too. You know what I mean? Because I think that really challenges what people's perception of autism is.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, with your autism, how has it affected your modeling?
In every way. I I had a lot of problems with communication, and I'm just going to say this too, that a lot of photographers also have problems with communication.
Yes.
and, and so I think a lot of the times as as women in particular, we kind of were raised to compensate for people's communication differences, particularly male communication differences.
Mhm.
And I think that a lot of older guys, especially, kind of rely on that. And so when they come across me, it's kind of like we're both brick walls, just kind of in the same place, where neither of us is really understanding what's going on. And I try to be as specific as possible and ask as many questions as possible. That way I know I've got everything covered. And I try to be really professional. But a lot of the times I think my asking a lot of questions is perceived as like, oh, she should have already known that, or I already implied that in my last email, or maybe she's challenging me because she's asking so many questions and that means she doesn't want to do it. When the reality is, I just don't know the answer.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense, and I'm not, like, fully educated on everything about autism, but from what I have learned, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that oftentimes, like, regular social cues that people who are not neurodivergent, like, they kinda pick up on things, and then if
Yeah,
you have autism, then certain cues it's more helpful if they're verbally explained instead of just, like, you catching the drift. Am I correct on that?
100%. I don't catch the drift. I don't know where the drift is. And it's like so many things go over my head and then I realize them later. And it causes me to like overanalyze conversations too because I know that I don't catch the drift. And so I'll be thinking like later on, like, oh no, did I like offend them or did I say something weird or were they trying to tell me this and I completely missed it? And it kind of it's great when I get a chance to like build a relationship with a photographer and get to know them so that those things are alleviated over time. But when I work with somebody just one time, I feel a lot of pressure to make sure that I don't miss those cues, you know?
Yeah, and this is making me wonder, are there times where you feel like you need to tell them in advance, "Hey, I'm autistic, so I'm gonna ask a lot of questions?"
Yeah, there are times where I would like to do that. And I guess I kind of go back and forth because there was a time recently, for instance, where I told somebody that and they just kept not acknowledging that I said it at all in the conversation. So I would say, like, hey, I don't have a driver's license because I'm autistic. So I can't drive to this place. And they would completely ignore that and be like, so when you drive to this place,
Oh
go
my
this
god.
way. And I'm like, wait. I just said, you know what I mean? So
Yeah, that's awful. I mean, if they're that's just basic communication. Yeah, I can find that very, very frustrating.
yeah. And I know that like we all deal with that regardless of our, neurodivergence or not, you know?
What about when it comes to, like, there's often situations when you're at a photo shoot where a photographer I guess it's kinda hard to describe, like, verbally, but sometimes they do things and they move a certain way and they're interacting with you in a certain way where, they wanna brush your hair off of your shoulder and they don't say anything about it, or the way that they're acting kind of is, like, not professional
Mhm.
in sort of a way that it makes it seem like they're attracted to you and they're trying to, like, push your limits. And so are those types of situations a lot harder? Like, have you found it
Yeah.
challenging to set boundaries with photographers like that?
Yes, I find it very, very, very challenging. When I first started modeling, I will say that I completely missed most things and didn't have the like self confidence to set my boundaries and didn't really know how to communicate them to people. And as time has gone on, I've gotten much better about it. But in the moment, there's a lot of times, unfortunately, where I find myself in a potentially dangerous or uncomfortable situation. And I have to just make a split decision about how I'm going to react to that. Like if somebody's tried to touch me in a shoot, there was one time recently where somebody kept saying like, just let me touch you, just let me touch you, just let me. And I
Oh my
told
god.
him multiple times and he kept like putting his hand out to like an inch from me to touch me. And I was just like, if is it okay to curse? I was just like, if you
Yeah,
fucking
you
touch
can
me,
cuss.
I was like, if you fucking touch me at all, I will scream and run out of this room right now. you know? It's just situations like that where it's like I could have totally just left in that, but my processing is so slow that like I I just finished the shoot. I just finished the shoot anyways, and I look back at that and I'm like, why did I do that? And I know that it's just because like I can't really react as quickly as a lot of neurotypical people can in those situations. And so what I've done to protect myself for that is I have my husband go over, who's not autistic, go over my emails and communications with photographers to point out any like red flags or anything like that for me that I may have missed and stuff like that. So that helps
Wow.
a little bit.
That it's very interesting that you brought that up, that you have your husband look over the emails to see if there's any red flags, because I know that as a traveling freelance model myself, who's been traveling and booking over the internet and emailing with photographers for so many years, the first few years, I didn't pick up on those red flags.
Hmm.
But, after, 8 to 10 years and then on, it was a lot easier for me to, like, tell just based off of their first email to me whether or not they're gonna be a weirdo. And so that is something that I do consider it makes being a freelance model a lot easier, but I can
Hmm.
see now that with having autism that those email conversations where there's like, somebody is giving you a vibe that like having somebody like your husband to be able to help you catch red flags can be super helpful. So that's really awesome that he helps you with that.
Yeah, he's been a huge help with that. I mean, there's a lot of things that I miss that, or I'll start a conversation or continue a conversation with a photographer and it'll go south and I will be really stressed out about why did this go so badly? And I'll show the conversation to my husband and he'll be like, "Oh, well, I could have told you from the first message it was not going to go well." And I'm
Oh,
like, "Oh,
wow.
cool."
Well, that's great that you guys work together, and I'm really happy that you have him to help you with that.
Thanks. Yeah, I definitely am grateful for it. It's a huge help.
I can see as we're having this conversation how every aspect of your modeling and probably other areas of your life too are highly affected, but that you do your best to have the tools to work around things and make them, work out for you. Obviously, you're a successful model now, so it's
Thank
working
you.
out.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah, I just always feel like even when it's more like lighthearted things, like say it's like packing for a trip or a wardrobe for a shoot. If a photographer isn't like really specific about what they want and they say like sexy glamorous outfit, then that to me I'm like, okay, that could mean about 5,000 different things in
Yeah.
my so so how do I resolve this? And I feel like most girls would just like, oh, throw some stuff into a bag and be like, cool, hopefully this is good. I mean, I don't know, but I just spend like hours and hours and hours sitting in my closet looking at everything thinking like, okay, on a level of sexy to glamorous, is this one is this good enough or is that good enough? And it can be really time consuming. So like the communication and being specific is hugely helpful to me.
Wow. And I mean, good communication, I think that good communication is kind of fading off, even though with technology it should be getting better and better. I think people just use the fact that we have this technology as a crutch, and a lot of people have become lazy. They're like, oh, they'll know what I mean. But I mean, you can instantly send somebody a text. It's so easy, like just do it, right?
Totally, yeah. And I think the other thing is like, and I don't know if you've experienced this, but like assumptions about your boundaries or assumptions about your personality because of, being a glamour model and or like having done any explicit work or things like that, that for me, I constantly come up against that about people making assumptions about what I will or won't want to do or how I feel about things based off of that when it's like, to me, it's just work and it's like completely separate from like who I am personally or like what I want and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I know exactly what you mean. In the last couple of years, with that whole idea, the most common like awkward conversation is I get to a shoot and we've already talked about what we're gonna do, and usually it's artistic nudes.
Mhm.
But at the shoot, when I'm there in person, they'll say, "So, I see you have an OnlyFans. What kind of stuff do you do on there?" And then I have to set a boundary and be like, most of what's on my OnlyFans isn't actually modeling. So if you signed up for it and you saw something on there that you liked, you have to tell me what you want, because I could say yes or no. And just because I shot myself doing something does not mean I'm going to do that in front of you, you know?
1,000%. It's just like the basic concept of consent, that like you can consent to doing things in your own personal time. And that does not mean you consent to doing it any other time, without being
Yeah.
asked.
Yeah,
I've had to actually
totally.
put a disclaimer on my OnlyFans because I had so many photographers trying to contact me through there, or contacting me saying, hey, your website says you don't do X, Y, and Z, but I saw in your OnlyFans in 2019 you did this.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, yeah, don't even quote my OnlyFans to me. Don't contact me on OnlyFans. I have a website.
Right. And though there are some similarities, most likely, between what you share on OnlyFans and what you do in modeling, that doesn't mean that everything that's on your OnlyFans is like on the menu for photographers.
Right, exactly. And yeah, and I just personally like professionalism, or an attempt at professionalism, goes a long way with me for respecting and feeling safe. So for somebody to contact me in the way that I like requested, like as in via email with saying what their concept is and everything, like to me that just feels safer and a way better place to start, and much more comfortable than like a message on OnlyFans from somebody that's already seen your most explicit content and it's just like, hey, want to shoot?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, totally. I want to take a short little break to tell you about Model Society. ModelSociety.com is a website dedicated to featuring figurative fine art photography for models and photographers. What makes them different than other portfolio hosting websites is that some of those other websites will still host kind of tacky photography or exploitative photos. Model Society screens all of their contributors for quality and authenticity. So you only get the best of the best on there. If you're not a photographer or model, you can still enjoy and appreciate Model Society because they also have newsletters and magazines featuring their best work and new articles each week. Check it out, modelsociety.com. I will also include a link to Model Society in the show notes. All right, now back to our show. So I'm going to do a little reroute because I have this part of my podcast called the Photo Shoot Fail of the Week. And it's an opportunity for you to tell a crazy story about something that happened at a shoot. It can be crazy funny, crazy scary, crazy what the fuck. What's one of your crazy photo shoot stories?
This was more like a plan for a photo shoot. So it was a meeting to plan out a photo shoot, and it was in this building that nobody was supposed to be living in Hawaii, and it's an old hotel, but some of the rooms in the building were rented out for like a dance studio and storage units and stuff like that. And the photographer that I was working with had his studio there, but he was also like, I guess, illegally living in the studio as well, which is fine, whatever. I didn't care about that, but I had been there a few times to shoot with him, and he had this idea that he wanted to do this creepy, like ghost themed shoot in the hotel. And we're like, cool, like let's see the area that you want to shoot in. And we go down, me, him, and the like lighting assistant go down to this basement level. And it's basically the most disgusting, I mean, it's literally a condemned building. So it was really, really bad. There were huge rats and pools of moldy water, feces everywhere, and like lots of creepy moldy furniture and stuff. Like it did look it would have been a cool looking set, but it was so unsafe, like rotting ceilings with water pouring through.
Yikes.
Yeah, all sorts of things like that. And it smelled so horrible. And he just wanted to like do this nude ghost shoot in this place. And it was like you couldn't even breathe. The lighting assistant was like coughing and trying to leave. He was like, I gotta get a mask.
Oh my God.
So that was pretty surprising because we had talked about it before, and I thought it was going to be like on a set in his studio that he made. And so when he took me down there, I was kind of shocked. Like, you really want to do the shoot right here? I was like, a rat is like crawling next to me, you know?
Oh my god. So, what did you do?
I just kind of said, maybe we can explore some other locations. I don't know. I mean, we didn't end up having the shoot, thankfully, I guess. But yeah, I had some other kind of, I guess when you mentioned the prompt for crazy stories, I haven't had anything that's like too super crazy. So that's kind of at the limit of what I can think of, is like weirder locations and stuff like that. Like, I had another location where we were shooting on a live or an active construction zone,
Whoa.
and there were these huge silver like pipes. I don't really know exactly what they were for, but you could fit an entire human being inside of them.
Oh,
And so that's
cool.
where the photographer wanted to shoot. And it looked awesome. The photos came out really cool, but there was like a patrol guard and like security cars. And when we got there, we didn't realize that. We just thought it was an empty construction zone. And what ended up happening is us dashing from location to location inside the construction zone, like naked, essentially, trying not to be seen by the security guards and stuff. And then it
Oh
started
my
raining
god.
too, which added a layer.
Whoa, that sounds crazy.
But it was worth it. The photos were really good.
Did you guys get caught?
No, we didn't get caught.
That's good.
But yeah, other than that, I've been pretty lucky. I've heard some of the other stories that girls have told on here, and nothing too insane has happened to me like those. So
Right, that's good though. I mean, you don't want something really bad to happen at a shoot.
no, absolutely not. Yeah, so yeah, I've been lucky.
And those like decayed abandoned locations, yeah, some of them can look really cool, but there've definitely been times where I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna sit on that. Like I feel like I'm gonna, you know, get an abscess or an infection just being here.
Oh yeah, and I'm really clumsy, and I don't know, I'm like a magnet for getting hurt. And so like even just normal beach shoots and stuff, I have scars from like sitting on a sea urchin and things like that.
Oh my god, you sat on a sea urchin?
I did unfortunately sit on
Oh
a
my
sea urchin.
god.
Yeah, it's just a little brown scar now. It's not that bad, but at the time I like just kind of was like, "Hey, I'm bleeding. Can we take a minute?"
Whoa. So I'm scared of sea urchins actually. Was it a poisonous one or did it just like scratch you and
I
make
don't
you
think it was poisonous because I didn't have any like reaction. I just bled.
okay. That's I mean that still sucks, but that's good that it wasn't a poisonous one. My grandfather had an experience with a poisonous sea urchin and he can hardly use his hand because of it.
Oh no, that's terrible.
Yeah. Yeah. So now every time I see a sea urchin, I'm like, nope.
No, yeah, I definitely get stung and bit by most things out in nature, but I was lucky to avoid that one, I guess.
So how are you liking Dallas?
Um, I have met some really nice people here, and that's been cool, but I never picture myself living in Dallas or in Texas in general. So it's kind of a challenge for me. It's definitely a wide spread area, and being somebody who doesn't have a license right now, it's hard to get around. Um, Most of my shoots are like 45 minutes to an hour and 45 minutes away from where I live. So it
Wow.
adds a lot of travel time and planning.
Do you have to take the bus or Uber or do you try to get people to pick you up?
Right now, my wonderful husband takes me to all of mine. So we've got it all worked out to where like he can schedule his work around my shoots a lot of the time. So he
Oh,
can take me. And generally, if it's going to be over an hour away, I just ask for like an extra $50 to cover gas. And most photographers are totally cool with that.
yeah.
Um, but as schedules change and stuff, like I definitely do take lifts as well. And again, most photographers are cool with covering that, or I can like work it into the price.
Cool. Well, that's cool.
Yeah, it is, but it would be nice. I'm working on getting my driver's license, and if I do succeed in that, it would definitely be nice to be able to just hop in and go.
That's awesome. Have you tried Have you been practicing driving at all?
Yeah, I have been practicing and I'm slowly getting better. It's funny because I've passed the written practice exam like 4 times already,
Mhm.
but it's the moment that I get in the vehicle, it's like all of the information about everything I learned just kind of flies out of my left ear.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I'm sure that, eventually it'll become second nature to you.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, maybe if it doesn't, that's okay too. But if it does, it'll be really, really helpful to me for, yeah, just having like more independence and also being able to say yes to more collaborations on creative shoots and stuff, you
Right.
know? So that's something that really holds me back on not being able to like collaborate when I want to.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because if you're not, like, making income off of the shoot, then, like, getting across town to get to the shoot seems like a lot more of an ordeal.
Right, exactly. It's like, okay, so it'll be like $75 each way for a lift. Like, I have to factor that in and know if the photos are going to be worth it, you know?
Yeah, or if they're gonna actually send you edits.
Right. That too. But I'm also guilty of doing that as a photographer. Right now, I literally am holding edits hostage. I'm sorry to that person.
And they'll come. They'll come
They will come,
eventually.
yes.
So I have another part of my podcast and that I call the Rising Phoenix era of your life.
Oh.
It's an opportunity for you to describe a situation where you were faced with a challenge that you had to overcome. And it could be related to your modeling or anything really.
Well, sorry. Yeah, I've had, I guess, a lot of different challenges. I mean, besides the ones we've talked about already with, obviously being autistic and all of that, and all of it, the challenges that come with that.
Yeah.
I guess one specific thing that I didn't talk about with that kind of relates also to modeling is a lot of autistic people struggle with self-care. And I also grew up really, really poor and in and out of homelessness and things like that. And so I didn't really have anyone in my life to teach me self-care either. And I didn't have access to like, kind of the stuff that I guess young girls do, whatever, in their preteen years, in terms of learning how to like do your hair or do other things like that. And so that combined with the artistic struggle sometimes for taking care of yourself is challenging as a model because you obviously are held up to an extremely high standard of beauty. And so that has been something that I felt like I basically had to teach myself in like on while I was doing it, how to be a grown woman, how to be a grown feminine woman and look the part of that. You know what I
Wow.
mean?
Yeah. Would you say that getting more into modeling kind of forced you to get more into self-care and beauty routines and stuff?
Totally, because before I started modeling, I literally wore a white t-shirt and black jeans most days, and I just kind of didn't really know anything about like skincare or makeup. I just kind of wore like the same thing that I wore since middle school every day. um, and like even now I'm just learning how to like take care of my hair and all of that kind of stuff because I've always just kind of like as long as it's out of my face, it's good. Or I shaved it off. So,
Yeah. Wait, you shaved your head at one point?
oh, yeah, multiple times. Yeah.
Wow. Cool.
Well, you have, right?
I did once. It was scary, but I'm glad I did it.
I did it, I guess, in the classic, like, emotional disturbance way. I was just like, I had a really bad day at work, and then I was just like, fuck it, I'm shaving my head. So I did.
Wow. Wow, that's intense.
I
How
also
long
dyed
ago
it
was that?
teal.
How long ago was that?
That was like, I don't know, 2018.
Wow. Dang. That's crazy. When I shaved my head, one thing that I was really happy about is that my new hair growth was healthy, and my previous hair, like growing up and then most of my adult life, I had this obsession with needing to have as long as possible of hair. So I didn't trim it enough. Every time it went for a trim, I was like, no, take the least amount off as you can because I want my hair to be long. But because I always did that and I was using like heating tools and blow dryers and straighteners, and I never trimmed my hair enough to get all the split ends off. And it was just unhealthy. I think that also going through hormone therapy with birth control messed my hair up too. So
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
when I
that stuff can
shaved
really
it,
mess with you.
yeah, totally. When I shaved it off, all my hair now is like, well, I would say healthy and new, but I bleached it, so I already damaged it. But whatever, I feel like I can do whatever I want with it now because if I ever get unhappy with my hair, I could just shave it off again if I wanted to. So
That makes sense. I immediately bleached my hair. Like, I shaved it down, I bleached it and dyed it teal and blue and stuff. So it was like it never got a chance. And it's
yeah,
curly, and I've never known how to take care of it, like, or style it curly until like just literally 2 months ago. I got my first curly haircut.
oh wow.
Yeah, so
So do you straighten your hair for a lot of your shoots then?
oh yeah, I've always just straightened it. When I first started modeling, I wore wigs exclusively
Wow.
because my
Uh,
hair at the time was really short and curly, and I just didn't have self-confidence in it, and I heard a lot of negative things about, like, curly hair in general from photographers, so I just, like, covered it.
Dude, that sucks. I mean, sometimes like the comments that photographers make, they don't realize how it affects the models that they're working with.
Totally, yeah, and it's weird because, like, I'll say that one thing about coming to Dallas is a lot of or to Texas is a lot of photographers have been like, they like big hair here and stuff. And so
Yeah.
when I was straight ironing my hair and making it as flat as possible, they'd be like, "Your hair is kind of flat." So it kind of encouraged me to try to do my curly again.
Wow. Yeah. That is interesting how every region of photographers seems to have like different preferences.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Like here, I would say tattoos is a way bigger thing than, like, say, in Portland, for instance, where people having tattoos doesn't really seem to matter at all as a model.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have any tattoos?
I have one tattoo. I let my coworker in Portland give it to me in her bedroom.
Cool. Fun times.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was, like,
Portland is
really scared to get it, and I knew the only way I was ever gonna get a tattoo is if it was free, and she said she would do it for free, so
sweet. Well, that's the best, right? The best things in life are free. That's what they say, at least.
it was more like I overcame something I didn't think I was gonna be able to do because I was so scared, so it gave me confidence.
Did it hurt? Where did you get it? On
Yeah,
your
it fucking
body?
hurt. It hurt so bad because she was barely knowing how to do what she was doing, so
Oh my gosh.
it's on my right arm, and at first she
Oh,
did a stick and poke, and we did, like, hours of stick and poke, but my skin wasn't taking the ink, and so then we came back on another day, and she finished it up with a gun.
wow. I never did any stick and poke, but I mean, I know it takes longer.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's also, like, it's an uneven tattoo, like, the lines don't add up. It's a pretty bad tattoo, but I'm still happy with it because because it meant something to me, you know? It's more symbolic.
That's cool. Right on. Well, I do enjoy going to Dallas and other cities in Texas because it does feel like a lot of the photographers there seem to be like really happy to work with the models. And I haven't had very many negative, weird, like abusive type photographers from Texas. Now, grant you, not many, and there's definitely been a few. But I would say that in general, I've always enjoyed doing a trip to Texas.
Yeah, I think that, like, the photographers here really have fun, or a lot of them really wanna have fun with the shoot, you know? And so that I think is kinda cool and can be refreshing. I have felt like since coming here, the assumption, kind of like what we were talking about earlier, about like boundary assumptions, has been different than other places that I've lived in, where like people here so far anyways have assumed that I'd be more open to more erotic work than I am, whereas like those assumptions weren't really made about me in other places I've worked.
Oh, that's interesting. Hmm.
Yeah. And so I don't really know if that's just like cultural or just like this happenstance, or what. But in any case, it's kind of been something I've been actively trying to combat by, through like what images I share and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think you do a pretty good job of representing yourself on social media.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I do want to give a shout out to at least one Dallas photographer because he told me that you were hoping to be interviewed on the podcast, and you guys shot together, I think sometime before I shot with him. Tim Bennett, awesome
Yeah.
photographer, super cool guy. Shout out to Tim Bennett.
Yeah. Shout out to Tim Bennett. Tim is awesome and really, really nice to work with. And I've gotten to work with him a few times since moving here. So that's been fun.
Yeah, and he's been really supportive for me in letting me know like how much he enjoys the podcast and he wants to, make sure other people get to find out about it too in connection with his magazine that he just started.
Oh, cool. Yeah. You're going to be in are you in the cover of the second issue or the first issue?
Yeah, I think he just recently released it.
Oh,
So
sweet.
yeah, shout out to Tim Bennett and his magazine. Everybody go check him out on Instagram or on his website.
Definitely.
Heck yeah. Cool. Well, I usually do these podcast episodes for around an hour. We're getting close. What other topics would you like to get into before we say goodbye?
Um, Nothing specific, I guess. I guess just to say that I really like what you're doing with the podcast and giving models an opportunity to share their experiences. And also, kind of like I was saying earlier, that we're all unique individuals with coming from completely different perspectives. And it's important for the people who work with us to acknowledge that, And so I think having these podcasts and platforms for people to share their experiences definitely helps raise that awareness.
Yeah, thanks. I agree also. And it's another reason why this podcast is audio only, no video, because if people want to get into it, they have to listen to us talk. They can't just look at us because they're always just looking at us with our
Totally.
pictures, right?
Totally. Yeah, I think that's a really smart idea.
Yeah, and for all the times that anybody, any freelance model like yourself or anybody else has made a post that had a photo with an eloquent caption, like, talking about your feelings, talking about what's going on with you, or raising awareness for like some kind of cause. If there's a photo attached to it, sometimes people just look at the photo and their comment is only like, nice body or something like that, instead of reading the caption also.
Yeah, it is definitely a little, I guess, disheartening whenever you do see somebody like really pour out their soul and then all the comments are just like nice ass, But
Yeah. Right.
but it's
Yeah.
still like at least they did it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, you want them to be following you and enjoying your photos, but also looking at you like you're a human being with feelings too. I guess that's a lot of the message with a lot of models, is that we all also have feelings.
True, definitely. I think that like sometimes when people say that, they think that it means you don't consent to people acknowledging your attractiveness or whatever. But
Yeah.
I don't think that's the case. It's just that, yeah, like that can be acknowledged, but also while respecting somebody's humanity.
Yeah. I guess it's kind of a double-edged sword though, because there's a lot of people, a lot of freelance models online who create an entire persona for their modeling and they never share any of their true feelings, and that is their safe space because their modeling persona is like a completely different world. And I do understand that also, but I think that for myself, I'm happier like being able to be myself on my platform also.
Totally. I think for me, I tried to do that, like have a completely separate work personality from like real life. But it's just it's too exhausting. And I think opens you up, or at least for me, it opened me up to situations and people that I wouldn't really want to interact with, you know?
Yeah, I totally get that. Right, because they'll make assumptions about who you are because if you're making a whole persona, then the
Right.
assumption is that you are that persona, right?
Right. So it's not necessarily wrong of them to think that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, totally. Well, Azure, I've really enjoyed getting to know you better over the course of this podcast. Thank you so much for opening up and talking about like the challenges that you've been dealing with over the course of your life and your career. I really appreciate you being so open about everything.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me and giving me the opportunity to share.
Heck yeah, cool. Well, I'm going to let you go now, but I'll message you on Instagram to follow up.
Okay. Thank you so much.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
I just wanted to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for listening to the Sunrise Life podcast. I am so grateful every time somebody comments or sends me a DM saying that they love the show. If you would like to help other people find out about the Sunrise Life podcast, it would be immensely helpful if you could subscribe on whatever platform that you regularly listen to Sunrise Life on. And if you could leave a ring, that would make me smile so hard. Thanks for listening. Here's back to your regularly scheduled show.